But I never thought I'd see a day growing up as a fan of the Big 12. I never thought I'd see a day where K-State basketball is more competitive with Kansas than they are in football.
Yeah, it is. It's disgusting. It's just disgusting. And
Hey, see y'all from Texas.
what's going on, everybody? Good to see you again. Welcome back to another episode of Just Talking Ball. No hype, no fluff. We just talking ball. And as always, I got my boy with me, Eric Foster in the building. What's going on, E?
Oh, living the dream.
Yeah, survive, advance, and survive. Survive and advance.
Survive in advance, baby. What Al Davis say? Just win, baby.
Hey, that's it. And as this new week approaches, that's all that matters on that schedule, a W. So, we're going to get into a lot of different things. Obviously, as we, move through the middle to the end of the week to another weekend of college football, if you will. There's no big secret that Texas won in overtime again, and Kansas got their tail beat, and it wasn't pretty. And, we've got some new things moving. The coaches carousel is still rolling and starting to pick up a little momentum. But before we get into it, let's just show our viewers the agenda for today. And like I said, talking about the coaches carousel, of course, I can only speak for myself, but I can probably speak for Eric too, that there's always something that we're mad about, and we're going to get into that. We're going to recap Texas escape from Stark Vegas, if you will. We'll talk about a big matchup. I'll go ahead and tell you that's my game of the week, Texas versus Vandy. Diego Pavia and the crew is coming to the ATX, so we'll get into that. Kansas has Oklahoma State this week for homecoming, so we'll talk about that. We'll also recap the Kansas State game. I didn't put it on here because I'm trying to forget it, but you know what? I got to take the bad with the good, so we're still going to talk about it, and then we'll get into games to watch and predictions. So, with that being said, let's roll right into it. So, Coaches Carousel, latest transition. I hate to use the F word, but the latest transition is Brian Kelly and LSU. Tell me your thoughts on that. Tell me, it's too soon, not soon enough, right on time?
For a program like LSU, I think their standard is the same as Ohio State, same as Texas, same as Michigan. You expect to win. You expect to win at a high level, but more importantly, you expect to put a quality product on the field, given the resources, given the backing, literally. And I think, and this is devastating news for Penn State and for Florida, because while those two jobs were probably, arguably one or two, LSU absolutely jumps to the top of the list, because again, my philosophy on when you're a state school and, all the way to the over involvement of the governor,
Great
of
prelude,
state,
yeah.
right? There is no resource that this program doesn't have. There is no money they can't go get, whether they've got to rob Medicaid to pay a coach, they will. It's just that serious in the South. So, like I said, I think it's right on time. Maybe early in the sense of I do always just believe, when possible, you give a coach the opportunity to finish the year, because I think not only does it help the players for that continuity to potentially put them in the best position to put good stuff on tape in case they leave and go somewhere else, or develop, for the next regime into next year. But also, I think there are two schools, because they could have done what Florida did to Billy Napier, where they fired him for 3 weeks and strung him along. And I didn't think that was right either. So yeah. I don't have any tears for Brian Kelly, because he didn't do what he was supposed to do. He didn't endear himself to the community. They never liked him. I think that's something that would have changed with some wins, some quality wins, but he just was never able to put it all together. He let go of some key guys. And I'll tell you this, Texas had a similar story when we changed ADs years ago, before Chris Del Conte, when we had Steve Patterson. One of the more innocuous things that he did, he fired the sports information director, John Bianco, who was endeared, right, to not only the Longhorn community writ large, but reporters and different head coaches in the sports, because he's the liaison between the media and their programs,
and the players and all
the
that.
backlash on that was just unreal, to the extent when Steve Patterson was fired 2 years later, the very first thing that the interim AD did was hire John Bianco right back.
I remember that story. Now that as you were going into it, I do remember hearing about that.
And that was a big thing. So saying that, LSU and Brian Kelly, they did some similar things with Tommy Moffitt, who was the strength and conditioning coach, who's now at A&M, and who's getting a whole lot of credit for A&M being able to just flat out bully LSU on the field, and it was personal. So I think when you make moves like that and they don't work out, those are the things that end up getting written on your tombstone as parts of the reason why. If you win, no one cares, never comes up. Tommy Moffitt, who, right? But when you lose and when you get dominated, especially with that person on the other side of the field, Elko, a former staffer, right, or a former DC for Brian Kelly, when you look at stuff like that, that was just bad and ugly all the way around.
Yeah, and like I said, ended up being the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back, and the whole thing. And you're right, I saw like you see on like Twitter or different things like that, ex-LSU players giving shouts out to Coach Moffitt, strength conditioning coach, and just how that did come full circle. And and you're exactly right, that LSU job did jump to the top of the list of best available. And as they transition, Frank Wilson is now the interim head coach, who's a Louisiana native, who is known to be a great recruiter. Louisiana New Orleans guy. Went to St. Augustine, who obviously Leonard Fournette and Tyrann Mathieu, guys like that went. But this is kind of his deal. He was the head coach of UTSA a while back, and then when the staff I was on at McNeese State, when Sterling Gilbert went on to Syracuse, he took over that job and kind of clean house, and I was one of the casualties. And things didn't work out the way he wanted them to there in Lake Charles, but then ended up, I guess, I don't know what job in between, but I think he ended up going back to LSU. And this is about the time where Coach Ed Orgeron was still, the head guy there. And I know he was endorsed by Coach Wilson because they had worked together, and, rightfully so. And the fraternity and guys that you want to see your assistants go out and, try to see if they can do the head coaching job. And you want guys, every boss I've had has said he wants assistants that are ambitious and that want to be head coaches one day. Now, there's nothing wrong if you don't want to be a head coach, but nevertheless, so we'll see how these next couple of weeks go. But and it's funny you mentioned the governor. I'm going to get into that. You kind of preview what I'm mad about. You said it you just said it a minute ago. Best college football jobs available via On3 Sports. Andy Staples is one of the guys that runs this page. But you like you say, LSU, Florida, Penn State, top 3. Any out of those 12 jobs, at least the top 5, do you see that order being different, or do you agree with that?
I probably would move Stanford up the line a little bit. I'd probably move UCLA up the line a little bit, because when you're in a state that literally all you got to do is go get the 10 through 15 best kids in your state. There's enough room for USC to go eat. There's enough room for, the cherry pickers of other top programs that are going to come out west and get some kids. But I've seen Stanford and UCLA, play with the big boys when they've been able to recruit California at a high level. So I think if Stanford gets a guy that has his own identity and doesn't shy away from it, I think when you think back to what's worked in the Jim Harbaugh era and the David Shaw era, right? You're not going to spread them out. You're not going to play fast. You can be kind of, again, akin to basketball, a team that plays hard-nosed defense and don't turn the ball over. Right?
Yeah, they kind of have their go ahead. Yeah, they kind of have their built-in identity, kind of like Wisconsin. We think about Wisconsin, and that's kind of, there's been some rumblings how they've lost their identity because they used to be big linemen, too tight, fullback, and just ground and pound. And what's crazy about that, you mentioned UCLA, and at the time, which led to, in my opinion, an early decision on, releasing Coach Franklin. But an 0-4, 0-5 UCLA team beats a Penn State team who,
Right.
expectations were through the roof. And it's funny, because, the way the college football evolution, revolution, whatever word you want to use, you look at these first 8 teams, and traditionally are like these are names that you see, like their stuff is being sold all over the country because those names are commercial. Those names are widely known. I mean, I grew up in Texas. I've seen Penn State gear in the mall growing up in the 90s here in Killeen, Texas, or in Austin, you'll see a UCLA shirt. I mean, these are
I think I was
programs.
frowning my face up more with the Virginia Tech and Oklahoma State. I think those are very good regional schools.
I thought Oklahoma State at one time was nationally, was making a run nationally and getting some recognition. Des Bryant, Justin Blackman, the Les Miles,
This is going to go back to, I think, what we talked about last week, and where I think some programs' identities are literally tied to the backs of others.
Mm-hmm.
If Oklahoma State doesn't have Oklahoma on the schedule, where they can win a Bedlam game, and now all of a sudden, kind of their whole season is reshaped. They don't have a Texas on the schedule where their whole season is reshaped. They've always, even in the Justin Blackman eras, even in the what's the redhead kid who could spin it? He made it to the league. Quarterback. Yeah. His name will come to me.
Well, I guess that point makes it. If we can't recall him off the top of our head.
My point being is that the frame in which you view them was
it's number 3. I'm looking at him. Brandon Whedon.
Yeah, was based on what they were able to do against high caliber competition. They've always played to the middle or played down when they've played other guys. So I think now when you look at that Big 12 schedule and you don't have a national brand that can save your season just by winning that game, that microscope and that view started to change pretty quickly for them. So I that's why I say I think it's an okay job. I think it's definitely a job that, given, T-Boone is not around no more. Where's the money come? So when you don't have those resources and you don't have that identity that you can build off of some other national brand, I think that job kind of starts to tank a little bit. I think Virginia Tech, just again, same difference. A way down ACC, Virginia might give them a boost, where that game maybe starts to matter. But other than that, they don't have any appointment viewing games on their schedule.
Yeah, I guess I can get behind that concept a little bit, because you're right. And I think no matter like how you explain it or how I explain it, it's gonna be skewed some kind of way, because we've been around it, we've been in it so long. If you got to get someone that's not familiar with ball at all and just start naming these names, because my experience with Oklahoma State, not only playing them, being a Big 12 guy, but Barry Sanders, who is my favorite player of all time, went there. So obviously I'm gonna have a little more interest, or just look at it a little longer, like you said, or just even when Michael Vick came along, he thrusted Virginia Tech into the national spotlight overnight. Before him, I couldn't tell you anybody. I mean, I know Bruce Smith. I mean, I'm an old head in that sense, but like you talking about just consistent. So
but we agree on the premise.
The premise, I said, for once, being a Texas hater, as I can get behind that. I will agree. Now, as that moves on, so you talk about guys that have yet to. And I don't want to speculate. This is just off of On 3. I was just on that deep dive and reading some stuff. Anybody on here that you see, no matter what they is still gonna probably have to probably be out of a job, but have to look for another job next season.
1 through 3 are gone, for
no
sure.
matter what.
1, 2, 3 are done. Auburn is in too much disarray. Beating Alabama in the Iron Bowl is probably the only thing. Florida State, they've already missed Miami. A Florida win would mean nothing. So they are out of the ACC championship hunt. There's nothing left for him to do. No major injuries to hold on to. No, there's nothing that would give them hope going into the next year.
Yeah.
I think Mark Stoops, one, I think he's ready. He tried to get out of Lexington last year, right? The A&M job was his, or 2 years ago, that A&M job was his, and the fans absolutely threw a fit, and they ended up with Mike Elko. Time will tell. The end of this year will tell us, were they right.
Well, so far, so good.
I don't think Maryland cares enough. I don't think Wisconsin has hit the bottom enough, but I will say I believe that Barry Alvarez, who I believe is still the athletic director at Wisconsin, he's the one who hired Luke Fickell, I believe. He's certainly the one that hired and fired Brett Bielema. I believe he's the one that hired Luke Fickell as well. I think it's probably going to be his ride off into the sunset is to try to get that program right. So that'll tell. I hope Brent Venable stays as long as he wants to.
You're right. I think 6, 7, 8, 9 are kind of like real. Obviously, Bill Belichick is just, you're sometimes you're a prisoner of your own success. Sometimes, and just the assumption and the reverse of it. Just when
I think if Bill leaves, I think it'll be because he decided he
exactly. 100%. And just like the whole Nick Saban thing, you dominated college, and he said, "Well, I'm gonna give it a try in NFL," and everybody like, "Oh, he's just terrible at it." It's just it's fits. I think Coach Aranda at Waco is doing a hell of a job, given the proximity. Not just to Austin, but to what College Station is doing right now too. I mean, these guys don't look terrible. They've got something good going. I mean, thought they should have beat Auburn. Now, I guess that doesn't look too good now, later in the year because of the struggles they're having. They're talking about getting rid of their coach, but they played Auburn early in the year in Waco. Was it overtime? But I think Auburn escaped in overtime against Baylor. I think,
and now that looks like a horrible loss.
Well, that's what I'm saying. At the point in the beginning, it looked okay, but like I say, Coach Loxley, who's a good coach, and I think Maryland will have a hard time finding the caliber of Loxley. I mean, just the tree he comes from under. He's a Nick Saban guy. I'm
trying to think of when the last time Maryland was good because they tried Randy Edsel, it didn't work.
Yeah,
I can't even remember the coach before that. They tried DJ Durkin, I believe, and that's where he killed a kid.
Ralph Friedgen, I think was a Maryland guy that had the last success there. But we're not going to keep talking about it because we could be just talking about some wrong stuff. But yeah, I just as this goes on,
that to say they don't have a history, so I'll never know how much they care. They just got a new basketball coach that cost them a ton of money. So I think they're otherwise invested elsewhere. I think Baylor would have a hard time finding money to go field a formidable coach unless they want to go get I'm not sure if Jeff Traylor leaves UTSA to go to Baylor. Money's probably the same, just about. Does it give you an edge competition-wise? Not sure.
I think it'd be a little better. I think me being a syntax guy, I've seen Baylor basically destroy highways and move stuff around to get their facilities up and moving. Where a place like UTSA, where I've always
all they had to do was move the stadium across the highway, and they'd have kept Kim Mulkey. They didn't want to. So
you're right, but I've lived in San Antonio, and I know UTSA is a landlocked type deal. If we're talking about facilities being able to compete with others, like they're fine where they are conference wise, but you talking about the Big 12 where you want more.
Well, I'm saying, does Baylor have what it takes to? Because I do think it's going to take some time. People think it happens overnight. Even programs that spend money, it's going to take time to build a culture, build out an infrastructure. So I do see it.
Say it again for the people in the back.
I do see it in the next couple of years. Texas Tech is going to start to pull way away from the pack. Who's gonna go with them? Who's gonna spend the money? Who's going to try to keep up with the Joneses? And that's why I say I'm not sure you leave to go to a place with Baylor where you can already kind of foresee a front runner, right? That's gonna spend until they get it right. whether it's with Joey McGuire, without him, whatever. Texas Tech has announced themselves and said, we are going to spend in any sport, whatever it takes to get ahead.
But stuff changes overnight. Just like that whole announcement, that whole movement with Texas Tech, it all of a sudden just happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, where was it when Texas was still in the Big 12?
It was there, it just wasn't enough. It was,
yeah,
and I think that's if we're being honest, and people can take it as a dig or what have you, but it's like playing poker, right? If I'm going to sit at a table and play poker, let's say I got $100, everybody else at the table, with the exception of 2 people, got $50. I'm gonna feel real good about that $100, and I'm gonna go all in because I know I can swallow up what's around me. But if I know it's 2 people at this table that got $500, I'm a lot more cautious with what I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna invest, what I'm gonna spend. So I think when you got the Texas out of the way, when you got the Oklahoma out of the way, whom, if we're just being honest, I can't go all in the way those guys can. So I'm probably just not really going to go in at all.
Yeah, that makes
now
sense.
Those guys are gone. Now you feel comfortable saying,
now I want to show off.
Because Arizona State ain't got this. Colorado don't got, you know what I mean? So
big bank take little bank, basically. Yeah.
That part.
Yeah. And speaking of which, that is a great segue into, because it's everywhere. It's on my monitors. It's everywhere. And I'm just going to go right into what I'm mad about. And please let me go first, because we were talking about LSU. We were talking about money, and we were talking about, in previous shows, about the crossover of not just people that are, I won't say knowledgeable, not credible in the sense of credentials, to criticize the way they do. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. This world we live in today, social media, everybody's got a platform, blah, blah, blah. But in the wake of the LSU transition, the next thing that's come out is the governor, as you mentioned earlier, has made a statement about it. I'm going to play it in a minute, about what's going to go on with the LSU football program. And I understand the South. Mom and dad are from Louisiana. I know that I know the importance of it. I know tradition. My uncle was a graduate and alum of LSU, aunt too as well, and cousins. So I mean, I know how it is in Baton Rouge. But just to check this clip out.
The first question is absolutely correct. We are not going down a failed path. And I wanted to tell you something. This is a pattern. The guy that's here now that wrote that contract cost Texas A&M $70-something million. Right now, we got a $53 million liability. We are not doing that again. And you know what? I believe that we're going to find a great coach. I mean, maybe we'll let President Trump pick it. He loves winners. I'm not going to be picking the next coach. Pick a coach, and we're going to make sure that that coach is successful, and we're going to make sure that he's compensated properly, and we're going to put metrics on it, because I'm tired of rewarding failure in this country. No, I can tell you right now, Scott Woodward is not selecting the next coach. Hell, I'll let Donald Trump select it before I let him do it. I don't know, but the Board of Supervisors is going to come up with a committee, and they're going to go find us a coach.
So I can see you want to be. Yeah, I'm glad, because you didn't know I was going to talk about this and show this or whatever. And I had to look it up and say, this got to be fake, but it wasn't. So politics and sports, the time we live in right now is just so muddied and everything. And even if you got intelligence, everybody's got intelligence, ability, whatever. I'm not going to get into it, but even Stephen A. Smith being the best sports broadcaster, commentator, journalist, whatever, he's got a political platform. I couldn't tell you what the name of it is. I don't click on it. I just see highlights of it. But right here, to go at your own people in the state of Louisiana and publicly talk about the AD, who, if you count LSU and you count A&M, it was $120-some million that they had to both pay back to schools. But you said he's tired of rewarding losing. Okay, your last 3 head coaches at LSU: Nick Saban, 5 seasons, 2 SEC championships, 1 national championship, a record of 48-16. Les Miles, 12 seasons, 114-34, 2 SEC championships, a national championship. Ed Ogeron, 6 seasons, 51-20, one SEC championship and a national championship on the second only undefeated team in school history to the 1958 LSU team of Billy Cannon, Chinese Bandits, and all that great stuff. And you're going to talk about your title reward and failure. Now, Nick Saban left to go to Miami, but you fired Les Miles and you fired Ed Ogeron. Now, people can say there's other things surrounding it or whatever, but I mean, come on, man. Like you say, I never thought Brian Kelly was a fit for that place, that culture of LSU, but I still thought he was a competent football coach. He was a successful football coach. So it wasn't about, oh, you just hired a dummy or you hired somebody weak. Not at all. I thought he was very capable and he had the background. He had won, he had done all, but there's just certain fits. There's certain areas, there's certain fits. And people are thinking I'm going to talk about racially. I'm not talking about racially. I'm just talking about just personality wise and coaching style and how you got to deal. There are different places. The team and the tradition of LSU players is different than the way the kids and the team is in Kansas. You know, I mean, it's just different. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. But for your governor to talk about the AD like that and say how he's not going to pick the next head coach, I don't know. What do you think? That's what I'm mad about if I didn't mention it already. But what do you think about that? I saw your face when he talked, what he said.
Maybe not so much what I think. I'll go with what I heard under that is if you're Scott Woodward, you're getting fired. Like that.
I did get that undertone.
For 2 reasons. One, and if you don't get fired, you have to quit because at no point do you feel like you have the backing of the school or the empowerment of the legislature to do your job. Because your job, by the way, also involves managing coaches, managing departments. Now that they have shown you from the very top levels of state government that they believe you to be ineffective
Can you believe that?
in the most primary functions of your job, which is to hire head coaches and put sports in a position to succeed. Those are your 2 primary goals, and balance a budget. Those are your 3 primary goals as an athletic director. So for someone to just leg sweep you and tell you that you're not doing the most important part of your job for the most important sport on campus, you're neutered. So you have to quit if you don't get fired. But I'm sure he's got a great contract because they lured him away. So I'm sure he's just gonna say, well, hell, I'm gonna chill till y'all tell me to go. But you got to know that. And I think secondarily, it actually doesn't make me mad. I saw it. It's funny. I didn't know you were going to play that clip, but I probably would have fitted into the show somewhere where in the same breath of saying Scott Woodward couldn't do this, he's also challenging that same board of supervisors to find a place on campus for a Charlie Kirk statue. So not to get into the ins and outs, I'll talk about the athlete reaction.
Yes, I did see that.
From that. You had multiple people from the women's basketball team speak out. You had people from the men's basketball team speak out. You had a couple of football players allude to it. So I think that what places are going to start to learn, we've already dealt with it. Texas dealt with the reckoning during COVID and the wake of George Floyd and the Eyes of Texas and the minstrel shows and all of the things that are deeply rooted in the history of the University of Texas. We've had our reckoning. I think when you start to try to do things and push politics onto campus,
political agendas.
A lot of this stuff happens organically with young, open-minded kids on a diverse campus. You don't have to push an agenda. Everybody,
and that's the freedoms of living in this country.
Exactly. Everybody's going to find their own angle, but when you start to push it, now you put people on their heels, and some people have to react. And if you start to alienate athletes,
great point,
of color, there is no world where the University of Louisiana succeeds in any sport, with the exception of baseball, with the exception of gymnastics, things that they're very good at and hold very dear. The rest of your sports suffer.
But those
sports might suffer because you want to be at a place that's open-minded and seems like it's about you, the athlete. you the person and not this agenda
Exactly.
that's creeping into this from a political
and by your own
position.
doing. Not to say that Charlie Kirk was right or wrong, but why even bring it into the why even peel back that layer to say we need to have politics and athletics does not.
I'll sum
need
it up to say
crossover.
this. I know for a fact that the video that Jeff Landry put out about challenging the board of supervisors to find a place on campus for a Charlie Kirk statue has already made its way to parents of recruits of color.
Wow.
So you can, what they say, FAFO, if you want to. I just think it's a dangerous game, and I hate it because I think if one person does it, then the next person feels compelled to do it, and we get in this race to the bottom. And I'm not interested in that.
Well put.
Athletics.
Well put. By your own doing, like say unprovoked, but like say that it's pushing agendas, but I don't want to drag it on. What are you, if anything, mad about? That was heavy. Let's lighten it up a little bit.
No, I still think I'm frustrated by the lack of national respect that Texas gets for hanging on. We were told by A&M fans for 10 years, the SEC is a gauntlet. There is no day off. Every game is a fight to the death. And this is why we're better than you, because we go to this conference and finish 8-3, and you're in a weaker conference and finish 10-2 or 11-1. So it doesn't count because it's gauntlet. Now that's turned in the last 2 years of Texas has a cupcake schedule. Can't be both. Either the SEC from top to bottom is a gauntlet, or it's top heavy like every other league in the country.
And I saw the video you sent. We talked about the Iowa and Texas comparison, but I think it's the same thing with Texas. It's kind of the build.
Mind you, Iowa doesn't have a single ranked win.
Yeah.
And
no,
I'm saying, oh, how come the resumes aren't the same?
Yeah. Well,
how are they? How could they be?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I think it's kind of the Bill Belichick thing, just that brand of Texas. And in recent time, I'll say 20 years, that there were, except for maybe last year, you kind of blinked a little bit when Kentucky, because they had that good D line or whatever. Like, you would never pick Kentucky or Mississippi State to even be close to Texas. Just at the caliber that Texas has performed at. And I'm just saying that for people that don't really watch ball, understand like Division, Division I. Power 4 is still good kids. Now, yeah, the way other teams perform can make those other teams look, you sorry. No, these are still ballers. You know what I'm saying? So I think,
mind you, these teams and
you're victim of your success. Yeah, you're victim of your success.
But to the uninitiated, and I will die on this hill, all games aren't created equal. How convenient that we play Kentucky after Kentucky coming off a bye. We play Oklahoma after Oklahoma coming off a bye. We play Mississippi State. We play Florida. Last 4 games, all teams coming off a bye. Mm-hmm. That matters, because then what? We go into the post game, and every single game, last 4 games, they did X, Y, Z, and you go back and look. They hadn't done that all year. Mm-hmm. Oh, why? They had a free week to look at tape and say Texas is weak here. Mm-hmm. Right. And this is what good programs do. I fully expect us. We got a bye week before Georgia.
Yeah, preparation.
I'm going to be pissed if we don't go to Georgia and do some shit we have not put on film yet. Right. That's what happens. So I think just the context of that matters. That's why I am eager to see the committee rankings, because these are supposed to be people that know ball and watch every game, allegedly. Mm-hmm. I'll see that and I'll know.
Next week.
Because what I feel like it's setting us up for is, hypothetically, Texas goes and beats Vanderbilt, right? Mm-hmm. They're 20 now. Vanderbilt's 9. Mm-hmm. You got to jump Texas to 14 or higher, because then you got to drop Vandy, and just the logic of it. Vandy shouldn't still be better than Texas, so you meet in the middle of that somewhere, right? Vandy 15, Texas 14, something along those lines.
And depending on what other teams do.
And then you play it out and the rest of the games, and then we're going to have this whole narrative, well, Texas, jump because they're Texas. And then it stops being about what actually happens on the field, because it's a miracle that other teams, Indiana, go to Iowa, and they just survive. They just survive. And where do they go? Up. Texas survives. They stay stagnant. So I'm annoyed.
Well,
I digress. Winning cures all that, because if you just win, and I'm mad about, I think the SEC is going to have to come up with a better system. I've been playing around with how the year could end. And there's a real life scenario where you've got 3 to 4 teams with 1 loss at the end of the year. And then so you're going to have 2 really good teams get locked out of Atlanta.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit last night. Yeah.
What do you do with them? And I think there just needs to be a better way, because you're going to have potentially one of Texas or Ole Miss, if they win out. It's between Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, and A&M, right? Those are the 4 that are still in the hunt for Atlanta.
And this is how this whole thing.
3 of those teams will finish with the same.
Yeah.
2 or 3 of those teams will finish with the same record. And
that's the same thing, when the college football playoff first started, the amount of teams, and it was complaints because more teams are playing at a higher level. Okay, now it's extended to this. Then like, damn, the whole season just needs to be a playoff and ranking thing. If you're going to always complain, somebody's not going to be happy. Somebody's going to get left out in the cold, and that's just the way it is. But great segue into it, as I always have to do. Let's pay homage to you on a roll. I don't, I don't. For the second week in a row, the Fighting Texas Longhorns escaped.
3rd week in a row.
Third. Well, I say the last 2 winning overtimes against teams that didn't nobody think they should be playing one. But once again, if you watch ball and understand that any given Saturday, you just never know. So tell me about
Tennessee hangs on against the same Mississippi State, needs a all-world defensive stop on the goal line to beat Mississippi State. They get it. Where do they go in the rankings? They go up. Who else did Mississippi State have on the road? Have on the ropes? They go up. So Mississippi State is close. I'm just watching them. We made a ton of mistakes. Don't get me wrong. But they were good enough, and they played good enough to win that game.
But 58 minutes worth.
I'm incredibly, proud of this Texas team. I don't know that I've seen a team I've never seen personally, with the exception of Vince Young at Oklahoma State, but you're talking about maybe one of the GOATs, definitely at Texas, one of the GOATs, but overall, maybe one of the GOATs in college football, led that comeback at Oklahoma State. But other than that, you don't normally see a team down 17 with 9 minutes to go and come back and win the game.
Yeah, 24 points in the 4th quarter alone. Jesus.
So I think, again, just incredibly proud of the toughness, incredibly proud of the staff. I beat them up when I think they make bad choices. But I think their ability to adapt and get out of 12 personnel and go to 11, and really start to spread them out a little more and have success and go to it. They made some substitutions along the offensive line, some due to injury and then some due to just necessity. So again, just really, really proud of the cliche Texas fight that was on full display at Starkville. And I think, again, that's one of those things. It's like what I said about coming off the game in Dallas. I think is one of those moments that could really awaken something in the team that they can then carry on. And because now you have a point of reference, right? The team they were on the field against Mississippi State. You're not going to tell them Mississippi State was a bad team. That was a good team that was prepared and ready to play. Yeah. So now this team knows we can handle a very high degree of adversity. And come back and win the game.
Who in the hell y'all are playing? Who's watching the special teams film? why are they kicking it to Ryan Niblett in
Well,
these
like
clutch,
Sark
in
said
these
in his
clutch
somebody
moments?
asked the question.
Like,
Somebody
why?
asked the question of Sark on Monday and said, or asked him, was he surprised that teams are still kicking to Ryan Niblett? And I thought he gave I love when coaches give an in-depth answer and not just the superficial, yes, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
But he said, some of that is what we do, and he talked about, the specific scenario. When you go back and watch the punt, they came after it. So the punter, he talked about that cuts down on the punter's chance to really focus and directionally punt something away. They don't get out of the pocket and get away. So he said, you kind of put the offense or the special teams unit in a situation where, do I want a 20-yard punt that comes off the foot bad because I'm dead set on doing something, and that doesn't really do a whole lot from you because now you give Texas a really good starting field position, or I put myself in a position to get blocked, or I just got to put it out there. So I thought, basically saying Texas had a hand in making sure that Ryan Niblett, and he talked about it, and sure enough, I went back and watched it. I didn't catch it in real time the first time, but the first punt, they blocked that really, really well. One guy on that unit, on Mississippi State special team unit, made a hell of a play and tackled him. He missed that one tackle. That one's gone.
The house, yeah.
So I think, I think you try not to. Hell, people was trying not to kick to Devin Hester. You just sometimes.
I say Devin Hester, Dante Hall. I'm not gonna put them in those categories, but golly, like Oklahoma, you should have watched that film. Okay, and then he did it to Kentucky. It did not do it. I mean, and now, like, dude, that's like top keys in a special teams meeting. He's got to be somewhere in the top 3. Don't kick it to 21. Like, it's just.
But how do you? And maybe this is your opportunity to give the viewers a little insight. Is how do you not, if Texas is doing certain things, right? If they're sending pressure, and I think it wasn't quite fake pressure because he was very clear about do not touch the punter.
Yeah.
I think it was one of those, he puts you right on the edge to where you can gamble. If you got it, go get it.
You've got to give up something. You got to give up something. Okay, so if I'm trying to eliminate him return wise, okay, now I got to look at the type of kicker I have. Do I have a kicker that can rugby style? Do I have a kicker that's accurate at coffin cornering? Do I have a kicker that can, kind of line drive it to kind of give us the roll but go out of bounds? So those are factors, but you've got to say, okay, we may not be able to release as many in covering it, but you know what? We're going to sacrifice that because we're going to do our best to, not put the ball in his hands. Now, yes. Does it go wrong? Yes. Does the kid kick it directly to the? Yes, it happens on all levels. So, but you're asking about what adjustments we made. You've probably got to keep another guy in, not release a guy in coverage. But like I say, what type of kicker do you have?
I think whatever the answer is, we'll see it in the next 2 games.
No doubt. Well, yeah. I mean, I
think Clark Lee. I can't say this enough. I'm so high on Clark Lee and what he's done at Vanderbilt, and people. It's like trying to win at Stanford because you've got these ridiculous academic standards,
but turns into high football IQ kids.
But turns into high football IQ kids. Yes. But they're typically undersized. They're typically underskilled by comparison.
Agreed.
So to be able to compete at this level with this team, there is no other way to do it other than the team being well coached. So whatever saying that to say, it's always interesting and borderline exciting for me as a fan is I know that Vanderbilt is going to come in and more likely than not execute on what they want to execute on. Yeah. It's up to Texas to execute on what Texas wants to execute on and impose their will. That's the only way out. That's the only way to win this game is to impose our will because we won't out X and O these guys. So when going into a game, we probably won't get a highlight from Ryan Niblett. We shouldn't.
Well, you're saying that, and you're a big Clark Lee fan. I will second that and add another layer to it. Their special teams coordinator, Jeff Lepak, who was a guy I worked with at McNeese State, who is a bright young special teams guru. He is part of that culture that they're building. He is part of that success. He's a Central Texas kid, played at Baylor. He's done a hell of a job. I can't say enough great things about Jeff Lepeck. So I fully expect, and I know who have those guys in that special teams department ready to go on in all teams, not just the punt team, but he'll have those teams
Won't
ready.
matter.
I'm excited. Hopefully I'll be there to see it in person, and maybe I'll see old Coach Lepeck. But yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, great staff, and that'll kind of segue. So let me know. Let's talk about it right now. Let's talk about Pavia in the game. How do you feel about the Commodores coming to Austin?
I think the matchup is really good for a Texas defense. They're number 4 in the country in stop rate. What does that mean? That means they stop the opponents from scoring points. Doesn't mean they're not going to move the ball. And when you've got a mobile seventh year quarterback with a high football IQ, hey, that's the rules. If it's within the rules, it's never a dig. I'm with it, because Texas may need that one day. I don't know. But you've got to saying seventh year is not a dig as much as it's to say a guy back there who's seen and played in a whole lot of ball games.
Yeah, well,
so you're not going to surprise
them. It's the culture. It's the times. It's the time.
Yeah. You're not saying that to say you can't rely on some of the other things that you can if you're playing a younger or immobile quarterback. You can surprise a young guy. You can disguise some stuff. You can show him some stuff. Pavia's seen just about everything you can do. Now, Texas has freakish athletes, so while a guy may be in the same spot, Anthony Hill may be able to do some things athletically that other guys haven't been able to do. I think Texas, we talked about it yesterday, Texas has 4 different guys off the top of my head that can spy Diego Pavia in both ends, and Colin Simmons and Trey Moore. Then you've got Anthony Hill. Then you've got Leonga Lafau. Spence, a defensive end they got out of Arkansas, who's really rangy, really athletic. So will allow Texas to maybe drop into coverage, which is Pete Kukowski's default anyway. He loves to rush 3 or 4 and drop the rest. And typically with a mobile quarterback, that puts you somewhat at a disadvantage from time to time. But I think when you have the athletes that Texas has, what is the perfect scenario for Texas? Being able to rush 3 and still get pressure. Because you have such elite athletes along that defensive line.
And you're right, but to say, like you talked about it, 41 points per game, they're averaging about 431 yards of total offense. Now,
none of that's going to matter because none of that's going to happen. But only because, and that's not
it has to be recognized, though. It has to be recognized.
It does, but you look at it, the most akin to this defense, and it's still not akin because Texas has more talent along the defense, but you have to look to a game like Alabama, where Texas is going to have, and Sark talked about this, they're going to only be, Texas probably only going to get 8 possessions. They average 11. So that's why I'm calling out 8. They average 11 possessions a game. So that number is going to be dramatically shortened this week because Vanderbilt's objective is to hold the ball, right, and win the time of possession battle. So can you limit that? Can Texas dominate the time of possession battle? Because now you've got a Vanderbilt team that's like 70th in stop rate. So Vanderbilt's going to give up some points. They're just scoring 40, but they're going to give up 24. Well, I don't know what they average giving up.
They're allowing 20 points a game.
Yeah, so they're going to give up 20, 21. Texas probably only needs 28 points to get out of this game with a W. I don't see Vanderbilt getting more than 28. Vegas is predicting a 23-21 game, Texas, right?
Wow.
But 27 certainly I think would get us there. How do you get to 27? You don't turn the ball over. You execute at a really, really high level. You play complementary football. I will die on this hill. All points don't have to be touchdowns. Certainly touchdowns help, but you just have to have long, sustained drives that end in points. If Texas comes out and only punts twice and doesn't turn the ball over, they probably win going away. So I'm excited. Like I said, I think the matchup defensively is really, really good on paper for this Texas team. Vanderbilt, they're fundamental, man. They don't make a ton of mistakes. Everybody's going to be where they're supposed to be on defense, so you can't bank on out scheming them. You're just going to have to go man for man, and you're going to have to beat the guy that's in front of you. So can Texas run the ball? Can they dominate the guys that are just in front of them? It's trending toward Arch is probably going to play. He practiced today.
No symptoms. Keep
symptoms. Then you go to tomorrow, which is a true team practice where he could be at risk for contact. And then Friday being fully cleared, which means he'll be able to play on Saturday. And you have a Vanderbilt team that doesn't have a ton of they don't generate a ton of pressure. They don't generate a whole bunch of sacks. So you don't think about it in the context of you're putting Arch in danger of getting hit or beat up a lot. So I probably
but what was that the thought? Was that the thought for Mississippi State too?
No. I thought Mississippi State would score.
No, I'm talking about as far as getting pressure on Arch and hitting him, getting hits on him like that. I just wonder if that's just a breakdown in the O-line.
I did because I talked about last week, they lead the SEC in takeaways. They do that because of their pressure. I knew that they would touch him, and I thought they would have to just blitz a lot of people to do it. And just like anything else, you can blitz a lot, but if you miss and they get out, like the Ryan Wingo, that was a blitz. They got on the outside and he's gone. So I think it's going to but it'll be less than that. I don't expect Vanderbilt to blitz a whole lot. I expect them to keep everything in front of them and really just try to make Texas go short. I think if Caldwell plays, I think that's actually a worst case scenario for Vanderbilt because he's going to hit the layup. He's not going to push the ball 20 yards down the field, but you probably don't need him to in this game. You just need him to make the right read, check it down when he needs to check down, hit the 5-yard throw when he needs to hit the 5-yard throw.
He's definitely going to play like I'm not about to make no dumb mistake or take no chance.
And that's it. And that's probably what you preach all week. Guys, we are good enough just doing what we do. Nobody's got to be Superman. Nobody's got to be anything special.
Don't mess this up.
But I think Vanderbilt but make no mistake, Vanderbilt is going to come in here prepared, focused, locked in, expecting to win.
Yeah, but
right,
and if the Caldwell
and they probably feel like they let one get away in Nashville last year.
But if the Caldwell kid is there, I play devil's advocate. Obviously, Vanderbilt can throw some things, even though Arch is young, that Caldwell hadn't seen. Like I always say, nothing replaces game reps. Nothing.
Fifth-year guy, right? Fifth-year guy. So I would assume he's seen quite a bit. He's always engaged. He's always focused. So this is where if Caldwell has to go, what kind of staff do we have? Are they able to accurately prepare a fifth-year quarterback who, like Pavia, has seen a whole lot of ball to just come out and manage the game? He can Mac Jones this thing to a dub.
No, and you're exactly right. With the defense you have, it shouldn't matter. Say if Vanderbilt is averaging 21 points, but Texas is only giving up 14, then
no turnovers, no turnovers, no short fields, no layups for Pavia. We'll be fine.
And the only chink, if you will, is that in the armor of their defense or y'all's defense or Texas defense was a stat that kind of jumped up to me that 57% on giving up third down conversions. That not even though they're good and strong overall, that's a high number of giving up third down conversions to opponents. So it is what it is. But so prediction. You said it. What Vegas had 23-21 or 20-23. What is your prediction of the game?
Give me Texas 28-17.
So you said 28 to win it. Well, I know you're feeling good. Like I say, all that Kentucky, all that Mississippi State stuff.
It doesn't feel like last year. I don't want to put that out there that it felt like last year, like going into Nashville, like even though they had played Georgia really tough, had beat Alabama, I still was like, I'm not worried.
Yeah, and Vanderbilt was an unknown entity in uncharted territory, and they wrote off a lot of things. That was the whole bottle throwing incident in Austin last year, and then they clowned. Then the social media war about we're gonna put a net up in front of Texas fans. It was
But there's
fun,
an absolute real world scenario.
Vanderbilt's for real.
Vanderbilt could come in here on Saturday and win, and nobody be surprised.
Exactly, because it's not a gimmicky thing. It's not a flash in the pan. They're peaking, So
make Pavia drop back and throw. No short fields, no layups, and Texas will be fine.
Yeah, well, let's move on. Let's talk about someone who is not peaking, and that is the Kansas Jayhawks. And I will say that's like the family member. I can talk about them, you can't, But nevertheless, we had the 123rd Sunflower Showdown, and it did not go our way. K-State came into Lawrence and they thrashed us 42-17. Now, this is the opening kickoff. And then we score. That's the only good things that happened. And it was a questionable fumble. I thought he turned it over. I thought it was probably a touchback. But the fact that it was called a touchdown on the field, then they reviewed it. They didn't have enough disputable. So anyway, we just I don't want to go off script. So we come out, I like the fact that we kicked it, we deferred, we get the turnover, and we score off the turnover. Okay. So now they come back. And then it's like we just pissed down both legs for a lack of a better, explanation of it. Jalen Daniels had 0 completions in the first quarter. Then we come back and do this right here. We have a special teams turnover, drop punt. Yes, it was rainy, it was wet, but we just didn't play well. We missed reads in the passing game from the quarterback position. We missed reads on the zone option game or the zone read game, if you will. And I hate to say it, there's just certain quirks or certain things about players that you can recognize, Eric, or you could say that that's what this guy's known for. I hate to say it, but right now, Jalen, not even right now, over the career, he has a turnover problem. And that is critical, and that is tough at the quarterback position because you can have a bunch of creative ways to turn the ball over. And what I mean by that is you can throw an interception. You can fumble the football. You can, drop you touch the ball first on every play. So he has a turnover. He has a turnover problem. And then when he wasn't pressured, he didn't make good throws. He was still throwing off his back foot. He was fading away from it. He wouldn't set his feet. I don't know if he was antsy. We couldn't cover a post route to save our life. I mean, Jesus, we couldn't cover it when it was thrown when it was underthrown. We couldn't. They let him get over. It was so much things, and I was so frustrated. And even just like the Missouri game, even starting off bad or starting off slow, we come back and then we get to that top part of the middle 8, and we did a good job. Coach Zabrowski did a good job of adjusting, and what he did was he did more pre-snap movements because Kansas has been known for since that staff got there. Then he started doing we started doing better in the run game, and then we kind of got away from the drop back down the field passing, even the intermediate routes, but we just quick game, and we did those things. And those put us in a position with the possession in the hole for the second half. It put us in a good position. But we come out for the second part of the middle 8, if you will, and we shit the bit. We get a 3 and out. K-State gets the ball back and they go score. And it got worse. K-State did a good job exposing our weaknesses. And you don't want to know what those weaknesses are? Our secondary. When we start getting tempoed and then forcing us to make tackles, open tackles in space. And they exposed that and they exposed it well and they exposed it back. The only bright spot in that, I'm going to go back real quick to that top part of that middle 8, which we talked about. I don't know, for y'all that hadn't listened to Eric and I, the middle 8 is the last part of the last 4 minutes of the first half, and then the first 4 minutes of the second half. That's the middle 8. And Bill Belichick and the other guys have talked about how critical that is and keeping the ball out of the opposing team's hands. And you gain an extra possession.
In every sport, the middle 8 is a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. So we talked about that, the first part of it, where Kansas comes out though and has a 19-play, 8.5-minute drive. So that's what kind of gave me a little confidence. Say, okay, you know what? It's rainy, it's nasty conditions. We've adjusted well. So let's go get it. We've got a possession in the hole. It was 21-7. We go down and score, make it 14-21, go into the half. We got the ball coming out. But we didn't. We went 3 and out, and it went from there. Just inaccurate passing, turnover after turnover, and it just went down. Murphy's Law. If y'all don't know what Murphy's Law is, anything that can go wrong did go wrong. And we made a 3-4 Kansas State team look like the 1998 number 4 ranked team that beat the pants off of us on Halloween in Lawrence. Now, that was the number 4 ranked team in the nation, probably one of K-State's best teams in school history. But this team wasn't, and we talked about it last week. We were better than them statistically in every category. Oh, we did win the time possession battle still. We did win that, but we were better in every category. But you know what? Right now, to me, this game is just an in-state game. And I didn't help towards it. I'm a Kansas guy. We were 0-4 against them. 17 years, 17 games, K-State has beaten Kansas, no matter the location, no matter what. And, like Coach said, this staff has made it more competitive, but a rivalry is not only competitive, but teams go back and forth winning. 17 years in a row, man. It's hard to say that we're not the little brother of Kansas State, no matter how we do individually. And it's always good to do better than Kansas State individually, but still, man, you want to win that. You want to win that game. You want to win the Sunflower Showdown. And you kind of looked at, you were like, golly, I didn't realize it was 17 years, 17 games. Like, I mean, it's frustrating. It's frustrating, man.
And maybe you can talk about the psychology of it, but thinking about your playing days or your coaching days, have you ever had a mental barrier that's even close to 17 years in between victories?
I can't, because, no, I cannot explain the psychology, but there's definitely something mentally there, when it's
and it's crazy. On both ends. I was watching it, and I was
crazy.
Hoping.
It's hard to explain. Yeah. I'm really trying to articulate it, and I don't have an explanation to why, because leading up to it, all these platforms and people say, well, if Kansas ever had a chance, this is the chance, and it looked nothing like. I mean, it's not like, oh, we turned the ball over.
I think there's a mental aspect to it on both ends, because I have to believe that in the K-State locker room, it's like, hell, you probably have got players, maybe not quite yet, but next year Kansas may have K-State may have a damn early enrollee that wasn't even born the last time.
If Kansas I say never even experienced them losing, exactly.
So that probably is where they're coming in with the edge and fighting so hard that we're not going to be the team that breaks the streak. No. So I think it's going to take. I think if the game showed me anything, that it is going to take a Herculean effort from whatever Kansas team wins that game, either a Herculean effort from a Kansas team or just an absolute, shit canning by a K-State team for it to go. And I think when it turns, it'll go back to being fair again. But I never thought I'd see a day growing up as a fan of the Big 12. I never thought I'd see a day where K-State basketball is more competitive with Kansas than they are in football.
Yeah, it is. It's disgusting. It's just disgusting. And you still got to play the game. All this paper and all this stuff. Games are not played on paper, and projections and all that. But just the fact that the team we put out there was capable and we were able. But like, I never want to.
That's damn near 5 graduating classes.
Yeah, I never want to.
Never lost to or never beat the other guys. That's wild.
I know. And I never want to.
I gotta look at that. I don't think there's ever been a route. I know.
I'm tired of my school being historically recognized for just bad stuff. At one time it was the Big 12 conference road, record. And, I don't want to beat down on the kid, but JD6 got to do a better job protecting the football. He scored an overall 36.0 via Pro Football Focus. That's a terrible grade. That's a terrible grade. Now, he still is overall for the season graded the highest player, with the 8 games under the belt. But it begins and ends with the quarterback as far as out there executing and playing games. I just, I don't know. You can't let it. It's just, let's move on. Homecoming this weekend. And this is another, I don't feel good about it. Not because I don't think we're capable. It's just all these things around us We've got Oklahoma State coming, who has their own issues. They're another school with a transition going on for a long time. Coach Gundy, the I don't even know who the interim head coach is, but I do know who the interim defensive coordinator is. Is a guy who recruited me, who is a Kansas alum, Clint Bowen, who is, been around the block in the Big 12, who, in my opinion, should have been the head coach at Kansas a while back when he was up for that job. But I digress. Oklahoma State is the lowest graded Power 4 team in the nation. I hated that I heard that stat. I hated that I read that, because that means nothing. What? A wounded dog, somebody back up against the corner, you've got nothing to lose. You've got to let it fly.
Football is changing. Football is changing, but football still today, and this may be different in 2 or 3 years once NIL and everybody truly finds their sea legs. And we'll never get a permanent status until we figure out how we're going to enforce stuff. When the NCAA figures that piece out, then we'll start to figure out, everyone will start to settle. But right now, everything's in flux. Saying that to say, until that day, college football is still a have not world.
Yeah. But I mean,
I can't even describe to you. And I think that's one of those things that, like, you got to sit back and really think about it, and maybe your anxiety would go away, because I can't even describe to you the scenario that would have to happen for Oklahoma State to beat Kansas at home. Like, it's not impossible, because that's why you play the game. But I can't even off the top of my head think about what would have to happen, because Kansas could survive 3+ turnovers. Kansas could survive poor offensive play, or maybe giving up a couple scores, just because Oklahoma State, and I watched them just to be sure, Oklahoma State really is that bad right now. So I couldn't even see it, because I wanted to come in and have some fancy take, but I was like, shit, I can't, I literally couldn't think of all the things that would have to go right in order for Oklahoma State to win this game.
Yeah. Well, let's not conjure it up. I was going to talk about some numbers, but I'm not. I don't even want to bring these numbers up, because it is, and we have nothing to do with it. But like, say, you being a Texas fan, you have your superstitions and how you move and how you think. Same thing with me. I don't want to sit here. I'm not a player no more. I'm not on the staff, but it's like they're ranked last in the Big 12 offensively. They're ranked last in the Big 12 defensively. They're giving up 40 points on defense. They're only averaging 200 and some yards of total offense. Texas Tech held them to 84 yards of total offense. So, like you say, I hadn't watched them. I'm going to watch them, in the next day or so. But you're
averaging a loss. When you're averaging a loss on paper, that's for those who don't look at numbers, that's really hard to do.
Just don't give it up to us, please, Lord. Just don't give it up to us. 1-7 versus 4-4. We beat them last year. That doesn't matter. Like I say, they're in transition.
Bold prediction: Kansas State dominates. What Charles Barkley said, guarantee. Kansas by 17+.
Well, I'll take it. And I'll receive it. I'm not giving a score. I'm not giving nothing. I just want a W. And let's just get out of this hole. Let's get out this slump. I mean, it's just the way it is. I'm not. Anyway, we're moving past that. I can't even articulate, because Missouri is still in the back of my head, because we played a better team, and had a chance to beat them. And then
you rise up, because how it is from being a player. I know how it is from coaching basketball. There is something, even as the coach, like, you get so locked into certain games, because that if you are not only are you not going to win, you could get embarrassed.
Yeah.
And I think when you don't have that sufficient level of fear, I was talking to my sister about this when we were talking about the kids. It was like, I think kids have to have a sufficient level of fear of their parents, because that keeps them out of all kinds of stuff It's a whole lot of stuff I didn't do in my younger years because I said my mom will kill me.
Yeah,
Right. And it's one of those things that I think going into a Missouri game or what have you, you're so focused from the AD down to the analyst. Everybody's so locked in because you know that if you're not, you don't lose. You get embarrassed on a national stage. So I think when you don't have those kinds of things, those are the games, speaking as a Texas fan, Kentucky, Mississippi State, those are the games that you see Florida. Those are the games that you see slippage. Because how could you go to Florida and play how you played, but go on the road to the Horseshoe and not play that way, or go to the Cotton Bowl against Oklahoma and not play that way? It's the level of focus. So that is what excites me about the schedule that Texas has coming up. Is every game now, with the exception of Arkansas, but like I said, I think Arkansas will have some skins on the wall by the time they get here. Every single one of those games falls into that category. So I know that I will get the most dialed in version of Texas. What that's going to result in, who knows?
It just pisses me. Yeah. I can't. It just makes you, because I can't. Yeah, I can sit up here and say it, but I take the good with the bad. But because they.
What's next? You gonna burn that hat up?
I will. I will say y'all do have a gauntlet coming up. I mean, y'all got Vanderbilt, Georgia, Arkansas, and A&M. And I just, you mentioned like being dialed in. In contrast, I say that because in contrast to what I am paying attention to and looking at, we've got Oklahoma State, then we've got Arizona, Iowa State, Utah, which is our own form of a gauntlet. If relatively, like
none of those scream out walkover.
Exactly. Iowa State's kind of been here. They've kind of but like Arizona, you don't know what you're gonna give Arizona.
Just got a big win, didn't they? They just got a big win, I think, didn't they?
Who?
Iowa State.
No, they got pounded by BYU. They played BYU tough for about 3 quarters, and after that, it got away. But,
I think they're in my head. The Kirk Herbstreit, Iowa, not Joe Klatt. Sorry, the Joe Klatt, Iowa, Texas comparison.
That's because they beat. Yeah, I was. Yeah. So, but yeah, let's move on because we're dragging off. All right. So now another thing I got to be mad at as we move on is my record in picking games last week, because obviously I'm going to ride with Kansas. That's never going to change. But at the same time, let's get a little bigger, see if we can see. So, I went 3-4 last week. You went 5-2. Tell me about how you felt about your picks, about the 2 losses you did have. Tell me your explanation on that.
Shit, I don't even know what games. I don't know what games I picked.
So I can tell you off the top, you lost the Oklahoma Ole Miss game.
Okay.
And you lost the Arkansas. Was it Arkansas? Auburn? Yes, that's the 2 games you lost. Yeah.
So Auburn, they didn't have the level of dysfunction I thought they would have.
Yeah.
Which I just thought would hold them back. And Oklahoma just doesn't. I'll die on that hill because it'll probably lead to me picking them again sometime in the future. They don't lose at home. They just don't. So I really expected that crowd to give them a lift. I thought Mateer would be healthier and ready to play, but it looks like that injury is probably going to hold him back from being who he was pre-injury. And that's, it's a bad break, but that's just what it is. And that defense wasn't exceptional against Ole Miss, like it had been. I do think, just by the way that they play and some of the pressures that I think they'll be able to get, I'm picking them again this week. I think some of that stuff that they're able to do, it'll negate where Tennessee finds some advantages with those really, really wide splits, and what that means. If you watch Tennessee, they've got their receivers literally playing to the boundaries on both sides. And that gives you a whole lot of space on the field that
you have to cover.
To cover. But I think Oklahoma will be able to generate some pressure. I think they'll be able to confuse Aguilar at a time. With it being on the road, I think you give Tennessee a chance, but I just feel like Oklahoma is a good team. I really do. As much as it pains me to say that, I feel like they're a good team.
Tell me about the rest of your picks while you already talked about those. Just go ahead.
I got obviously Georgia over Florida. I do expect that, Georgia will win. That cover makes me nervous because I do expect a spirited Florida team to show up. They've got nothing to lose. They've got talent. So
Oh yeah.
anytime you play a talented team that hasn't put it all together, a la what happened against Texas, they can show up and they can win.
I know 7.5. I know that's crazy given the record and performance of
Yep.
two.
But I think that's a recognition of
Yeah.
it's a neutral site being played in Jacksonville, which they need to move that. There's no historical significance.
I know it's kind of lost its zeal with the largest outdoor cocktail party or something like that.
There's
Yeah.
absolutely no historical significance to that game being in Jacksonville. I think it can go to a home and home and be just fine. I think Mississippi State is a good team. I think they wake up. I think Arkansas is very, their offense is coming around. So is Mississippi State. And I think this is either one of those things. Either Mississippi State wins or they get absolutely blown out because the Texas win. They just haven't been able to overcome it. And that's a hard one to overcome, by the way, because you had it.
And and to get up and play the same way and sustain that throughout the whole game. I agree.
But I think just by virtue of how they play with the quick game stuff, and like I said, they still lead the country in takeaways. They got a takeaway against Texas. Taylor Green absolutely turns that ball over quite a bit for Arkansas. So again, you can get some short fields, you can get some layups. I think Ole Miss dominates South Carolina. They just haven't found it. Everybody's got the answer in the book on Lenore Sellers. They've been able to keep a lid on Nick Harbor. So they're not going to be able to put it together. And I think Ole Miss rolls. But I'm rooting against Ole Miss for every game they play because I need them to get out of the way. It helps the Texas tiebreak scenarios when we talk about who gets to Atlanta. I told you Oklahoma, I think they go on the road and get a huge road win. And then I think Auburn beats Kentucky. It's a toilet bowl game. It doesn't matter. It means nothing to no one. So you defer to the home team. That cover makes me nervous because again, you're playing two teams that have nothing to play for at all. Both coaches are fired at the end of the year. Oof. I think it's just one of those things. The better team and the more talented team will win out. And that's why I pick Auburn.
That's what's up. And then your highlighted game. Tell me why you highlighted the USC Nebraska.
Because apparently I can't just watch the FCC every week. But no, like I said, I think USC is dangerously, close to creeping back into that playoff picture. I think Nebraska is really talented. Dylan Raiola is up and down and up and down. Yeah. If he's up, it could be an interesting game. So I think it was just one of the more compelling games I saw on the schedule. So that's one I'll try to peek in on if I can.
I got you. Well, I'll roll through mine. I'm not going to reiterate this Kansas game. It's a 30-point plus whatever. We just better take care of it. I don't care.
I'll tell you, home teams that are favored by 21 or more are 36-0. Against an unranked team. I'm just telling you. I'm just add more. Lot, just so that the audience, just so folks at home understand, this is akin to a team being down 4 points at the end of a basketball game, and the other team is shooting free. I need you to miss the free throw. I got to get the rebound. I got to hit a half-court shot and get fouled while doing it. Like, is it theoretically possible? Yes, but so much shit has to go wrong for Oklahoma State to win this game. I just can't see it.
Well, I'm gonna put it up here and say it on record. If it does, there will not be a show next week. So let's go back to it. So West Virginia, Houston, man. Houston's rolling. Connor Wegman. I mean, them boys are rolling. They're getting a lot of national buzz, even though with the coach and just Willie Fritz, I think, there's so much going on. I've been so locked in.
It'll be fun. I will say the Big 12, not to cut you off, but I bashed them a lot. I will say the Big 12 is doing what they need to do to become compelling down the stretch, because the same way with the SEC, where you don't know who's going to end up in Dallas playing for the Big 12 title.
Yeah.
with the exception of you probably can pencil in BYU at, if they win another 1 or 2 games. I
Yeah.
think irregardless of what happens when they go to Lubbock, you'll probably be able to pencil them in. But you got 3 other teams that are vying for that second spot. So I think it gets compelling, and you'll get eyeballs toward the end of the season just to see what happens.
And I do think, with that being said, I think this is a week in the Big 12 that things go the way they're supposed to go, minus UCF and Baylor, which is the next game. I think it's a wash. I think you just never know the consistency of those teams. I don't, Baylor gets the edge because they're playing at home, but I think the spread's 3.5. It's moved to 3.5. It was 4.5 at one time. I think it's moved to 3.5. Arizona State, Iowa State. I don't know. Same thing. On paper, I would like to say that Arizona State has been playing better, but you never know. It'll officially be November on Saturday in Ames, and I like to see
a big win, right?
Yeah,
what does that do for them? Where do they go with it?
Yeah, well, Iowa State's coming off a pounding. I mean, BYU gave it to them pretty good, so we'll see if they bounce back from that.
Big win, bad loss. That's compelling. I'll watch.
Yeah. So Texas Tech, Kansas State. Funny enough, this is the 30-year anniversary of the Big 12, and the Texas Tech, Kansas State was the first conference Big 12 game. So there's a little tidbit for you. So it's 30-year anniversary. Don't ask me who won. I don't give a damn who won. But anyway, I got Tech big. I don't care. I will be a Red Raider Wreckham Tech fan for those 60 minutes. Shout out to my boy Jason Thomason, because they need to take care of business. So I'm still mad about that. Arizona, Colorado is another one that's I hate to say it, a little uninteresting right now for me.
Stinker.
Yeah, I just, I hate to say that because I know the job is hard, winning is hard, but just neither one of these teams look very good, or even compels me to want to watch them. But I'm still gonna, read up on it and watch it for sure. And then Cincinnati, Utah is probably a sleeper game as far as what implications it has. 2 ranked teams. Cincinnati's rolling. I picked against them last week, where I said they had been getting lucky. They looked solid this past week. So it's hard to win in Utah. It's hard to win at Utah, and I don't know, man. Utah's a 10.5 point favorite. I don't know. I picked Cincinnati because I picked against them last week and they made me look so bad. So I don't know. That could go either way, but I'm still gonna roll with Cincinnati on that. And and like I say, obviously, if you're a betting man, don't watch me, don't ask me. I've got so many things that play into it, and the coaching, and just I don't get into the spread thing, but it's just if you take away the Kansas game, nah, we still should have won that. I don't give a damn. Anyway, but Vandy, Texas, and hopefully I will be at that game. That is my highlighted game. That's an interesting game to me because it's Texas, and I do respect the brand. I do know what comes along with that.
Did we win the last game I took you to?
Huh?
We win the last game I took you to.
Oh my God! Did I go to a game last season?
Speaking of superstitions, yes.
Did I go to a game last season?
Multiple last season.
I'm pretty sure because I would have made fun of you. I think every game I've been to that Texas,
yeah, because we didn't lose a home game last year.
Yeah, exactly. So there you have it. So I will be there in attendance. There it is, confirmation. But yeah, so we'll see. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's emotional. People forget that while these are men, they're still young men, and they're still men still trying to figure things out. And winning is hard, and it's like I say, it's the haves and have not, or who's gonna show up, man, and just take care of business. What? Don't get distracted by BS. I hate all this. This. I'm so glad I didn't come up in the social media age, man. I have no idea how that would have affected me. Who knows what I would have
Michael Jordan both.
Boy, who knows what I would have said at 18, 19, 20. So I mean, you laugh at the milk carton picture enough. Just imagine if I had to respond to that. I'll say, well, so what do you think about that? Milk carton picture. Oh, whoever the hell wrote that about me probably couldn't chew gum. And I was just, I take that back. But yeah, so big week this week. I'm excited, man. I'm still obviously down about the way we lost and how we lost, man. And expectation was definitely there. Like I say, kind of getting on to what Coach Saban said about James Franklin. He created expectation there. And same thing, Coach Leipold has created some expectation in Lawrence. And, you know, like say you were in position where you were the favorite against K-State. Statistically, whatever have you, it was all in you were home. We had
Well,
it
maybe
all
you'll
there.
get to join the club. Let's see how patient David Booth is. Let's see how, because Kansas fans are giving more and getting invested more, which means they're going to expect more.
Yeah.
So I have to imagine that this leash ain't a whole lot longer, especially with JD6 coming back this year.
Yeah.
And especially with them not performing.
You're right. I love what Coach Leipold has done and what he's brought here. But yes, 2 years. Well, you can't have 2 years underperforming, because golly, we were so deep last year and we underperformed, we underexcelled, and now, we're kind of like, okay, yeah, we lost a lot of offensive weapons, lost some on defense, O-line. We've got the quarterback coming back. We've won some games. We've played well in some games, but we're sitting here at 500. 2 more wins to get bowl eligible out of the next 4 games. So it's we'll see. I don't have any more juice, man. I don't have no juice right now to even get excited about it. Let's get back in the win column, man. Let's see what happens. But I appreciate you as always. Let's see. Is there anything else? Is there anything that I wanted to add? No. Anything local? Nah, I can't think of nothing. But as always, rock chalk.
Praise the Lord and hook 'em horns, baby.
I will see y'all next time. Happy Halloween for those that celebrate it. Later.
Hey, see y'all from Texas.